still remember scanning the crowd at my college graduation, holding out hope she'd show up. She didn't. The seat I saved for her stayed empty the whole ceremony. My friends' families screamed and cried, held up signs, tossed flowers. And me, I clutched my diploma and swallowed the lump in my throat. She'd promised. Of course I'll be there, baby. I wouldn't miss it for the world. But the truth was, she'd already missed everything. Because ever since she met Ray, I stopped being a priority. And that day, watching her empty chair in the front row, I finally admitted it to myself. My mom had chosen her new husband over me. After graduation, I went straight home, or what used to be home. I still had my key, but when I turned it in the lock, the door didn't budge. It took me a full minute to realize the locks had been changed. I knocked, heart pounding, and after a few moments, Ray answered, shirtless, with a beer in hand. Yeah. Is my mom home? I asked, trying not to sound as small as I felt. He leaned on the door frame like it was his house. She's busy. What do you want? I need to grab my stuff. I live here. He laughed. Not anymore. That night, I slept in my car. No call from her. No text. The next day, I finally got her on the phone. Her voice was soft, almost guilty. Sweetheart, it's just for a little while. Ray's going through a tough time. He needs space. I thought you'd understand. I wanted to scream. I had just graduated with honors. I had no job, no apartment, barely any savings. And she kicked me out for a man who never once remembered my birthday. Just for a little while, she said. But that little while turned into a year. And by the time I found my own place, I also found something else. A version of myself that no longer needed her approval. But apparently, that freedom, it would come with a price, a legal one. Because just when I thought I was finally healing, she served me papers. It came in a plain white envelope, no return address, no warning, just a knock at the door, and a man in a blazer asking, "Are you my full name?" I nodded, confused. He handed me the envelope, said, "You've been served," and walked off like it was just another Tuesday. I opened it right there, on my doorstep, barefoot in pajamas. It was a lawsuit, filed by my own mother. The claim, neglect of familial duty. She said I'd abandoned her, emotionally, financially, physically. She wanted damages. I almost dropped the papers. I sat down on the steps, shaking, reading the words again and again, hoping they'd magically say something else. I thought it was a joke, a bad one. Ray must have put her up to it, but every page was stamped and signed, and the final paragraph. The plaintiff seeks restitution for the emotional harm caused by the defendant's willful abandonment of family responsibilities, including but not limited to failure to assist during illness, failure to provide companionship, and willful absence from key events. My hands went cold. She hadn't shown up for my graduation. She'd locked me out of my childhood home. She'd chosen him. And now she was painting me as the villain. I wanted to scream, cry, punch something. Instead, I grabbed my phone, and I called a lawyer. Because if she wanted to drag me through court like I was some stranger, then I'd let the court hear the whole story. The lawyer I found, her name was Karen, and yeah, I know the stereotype, but she was nothing like that. She was sharp, cold where I needed her to be, warm only when I couldn't take one more blow. She skimmed the papers and raised an eyebrow. "Your mother is suing you?" she asked, flipping to the damages page. "For abandoning her?" "Yeah," I muttered, staring at the floor. "After she threw me out and changed the locks." Karen paused. "She's married to that guy, right? The one who wouldn't even let you get your things." "Ray," said bitterly. She picked him over me every single time. Karen leaned back in her chair and sighed through her nose. Look, I've seen petty. I've seen spiteful. But this is new. She explained that the case had no legal ground, not unless I had been her caretaker or had signed something. But the emotional damage, the public record, that was the point. Not the money, not the law, the shame. She wants to humiliate you, Karen said flatly. Make you feel like you abandoned her. Classic manipulation wrapped in a court filing. I left her office feeling sick, like the floor had tilted under me. What kind of mother would drag her own child to court? But the worst part, I still loved her. Some part of me still clung to the little girl who waited by the window every night she came home late from work, who made cards for her birthday, who thought moms protected you no matter what. But love wasn't going to save me from this, and neither was silence. For the first time in my life, I was about to speak up, and I wasn't going to sugarcoat anything. I was 17 the first time I met Ray. He showed up to our apartment wearing a cologne that smelled like burnt tires and liquor, with a grin that never reached his eyes. Mom introduced him like he was some kind of gift. "This is Ray," she said, tucking her hair behind her ear like a teenager. "He's gonna be staying with us for a little while." A little while turned into months, then years. At first, he pretended to play nice, bought takeout sometimes, watched movies with us on the couch. But the mask slipped quick. He'd get irritated if I talked while he was watching TV. He'd roll his eyes when I asked for a ride to school. Once, when I got home late from a part-time shift, he locked the deadbolt, knowing I didn't have a key. Mom said I was being dramatic. "Ray just has his moods," she told me. "You've got to be more understanding." Understanding. I was a teenager juggling school, work, and cooking dinner most nights, while he sat on the couch barking at the news. One night, I came home from tutoring to find my bedroom had been rearranged. Ray had taken my desk, and moved it into the living room for his side hustle. I was too stunned to speak. Mom just said, "Don't make a scene. He needs space." I started shrinking that day. I stopped inviting friends over, stopped talking about college, stopped laughing in my own home, because Ray took up all the air. And Mom, she let him. It was a Tuesday night. I was sitting at the kitchen table, headphones in, trying to finish a biology project. Ray walked in, opened the fridge, slammed it shut, and muttered, "Where's the damn milk?" I didn't look up, just said, "There was still some this morning." Then it happened. He yanked the headphones right off my head. "What did you say?" His breath smelled like whiskey and cigarettes. His eyes were bloodshot. My heart leapt into my throat. I stammered, I didn't mean anything. He slammed his fist on the table so hard my pencil cup rattled. "Don't get smart with me." I froze. I didn't cry. I didn't speak. I just waited for it to pass. Mom came out of her room a minute later, rubbing her eyes. "Ray, baby, what's going on?" "She's got an attitude." Mom turned to me. "Sweetheart, don't provoke him. He's had a long day." That was the moment. Not the yelling, not the slamming. It was her eyes, empty, dismissive, like I was the one at fault. That night, I didn't sleep. I kept the door locked, the lights off, and my suitcase half-packed under the bed. It was the first time I considered running away, but I stayed, because somehow I still believed she'd see me, that she'd wake up and remember I was hers. Spoiler alert, she never did. I was 18 when it got worse, not louder, just colder. Silence became its own kind of violence in that house. Ray would leave for hours and come back with nothing to say, but everything to control. He didn't need to scream anymore. One look was enough. And Mom, she stopped asking how my day was, stopped porch light flickering overhead. I didn't cry. I didn't knock. I just waited. 2 hours. Eventually, the door creaked open. She stepped out. No shoes. Just a robe and a glass of wine in her hand. She looked down at me like I was some stray animal that had wandered onto her porch. "You really need to stop pushing him," she whispered. "You know how he gets." "I didn't do anything," I said, my voice barely there. She sipped her wine. "Exactly. That's the problem. You don't even try anymore." That was the night I shut off a part of myself I still haven't found again. I stopped defending myself. I stopped explaining. I learned how to go silent, because silence was safer than trying to be heard. It happened 3 weeks before I started college. I'd gotten into a state university with a partial scholarship. Not a full ride, but enough to get out. I hadn't even told them. I applied in secret, wrote my essay in the dark, whispered with my guidance counselor between shifts at the store. I remember the acceptance letter arriving, folded, creased from being stuffed in my backpack like contraband. When I opened it alone in the back room of the grocery store, I cried for the first time in months. But back home, I said nothing. I couldn't. Not when I saw Ray at the kitchen table every night, calculating how much of my paycheck could go toward the house. Not when Mom asked how work was, but never once how I was. So I planned in silence. I gathered what I needed: my ID, my clothes, a busted laptop, a duffel bag. I booked a bus ticket with my own money. And one morning, just before sunrise, I stood in the doorway of my bedroom, the room that had never really been mine. I looked at the posters on the walls, the cracks in the ceiling, the tiny desk Ray never gave back. I didn't cry. I just left. No note, no goodbye. Just the soft click of the door closing behind me. And as I sat on that bus, watching the town fade behind dirty windows, I felt something I hadn't in years: relief. But what I didn't know, what I couldn't have known, was that one day they'd come knocking again. Not for love, not for family, but for payback. The first year on my own was rough. I lived in a shared dorm with paper-thin walls and a roommate who snored like a chainsaw. I worked 2 jobs, one at the library, one slinging coffee, just to afford textbooks and canned soup. But you know what? I was happy. Every inch of freedom felt like a luxury. I decorated my corner of the room with fairy lights. I studied late into the night without fear of someone bursting in. I danced to music with my headphones on and didn't flinch when someone knocked. I didn't talk about my mom or Ray, not to my friends, not to professors, not even to the girl I was dating for a while. It was like they didn't exist. But life has a funny way of testing you when you least expect it. One evening, I got a message request on Facebook from her. It was a short paragraph, overly formal, like a business email. "Hi, sweetheart. I hope you're doing well. Ray lost his job, and I've been having some health issues. We could use some support. Maybe you could come visit, just for a little while. After all, family is a two-way street." I stared at the message like it was written in another language. Family is a two-way street. Where was that street when I was sleeping in my car? When she locked me out? When she picked a man over her own daughter again and again? I didn't reply, but something in me cracked open again. A wound I thought had scarred over, and I realized she wasn't done with me, not even close. She still believed she had access to me. Like I was a subscription, she could pause and restart whenever it was convenient. She had no idea the road between us had crumbled a long time ago. And this time, I wasn't going to help rebuild it. I didn't respond to her message. Not that day, not the week after, not ever. I didn't block her either. I just let the silence sit there, like a mirror, and in that quiet, I learned something no one had ever taught me. You don't owe love to someone just because they gave birth to you. That realization hit me one evening in the college library. I was working a late shift, organizing returns, when I found a book someone had left on a study table. Toxic Parents, Overcoming Their Hurtful Legacy. The title punched me in the chest. I didn't even check it out, just sat down and started flipping through. Page after page I saw myself. Daughters turned caretakers, sons made to apologize for existing. Kids who grew up thinking love meant shrinking themselves smaller and smaller until they finally disappeared. By the time I closed the book, I was shaking. All my life, I thought if I just did better, got better grades, smiled more, stayed out of Ray's way, she'd choose me. She never did, and maybe she never could. That night, I made a quiet promise to myself. No more guilt, no more explaining, no more apologizing for surviving. From that point on, I was going to build a life so full, so peaceful, so mine, that even her lawsuits, lies, or letters couldn't touch it. But I underestimated her talent for finding new ways to wound. Because a year later, she would do something I never saw coming. She'd walk into a lawyer's office and accuse me of abandoning her in her time of need. She'd take my silence, my boundary, and twist it into betrayal. And that's when I knew. This wasn't about healing anymore. It was about war. By the time the lawsuit hit, I was 25. I had a tiny apartment, a stable job, a dog named Milo, and something I never thought I'd have: peace. I still flinched when the phone rang unexpectedly. I still checked behind me twice in grocery store aisles. But mostly, I was healing. And then, boom, the past came knocking again. Karen, my lawyer, went through the documents line by line. My mother had claimed that I'd emotionally abandoned her during a time of illness. I asked, what illness? Karen shrugged. Nothing she's listed has any medical proof. She mentioned chronic stress, said she was bedridden from heartbreak. I actually laughed, not because it was funny, but because it was just so her. She didn't want a visit. She didn't want support. She wanted to punish me for not collapsing under the guilt like I used to. Karen leaned forward. You realize what this really is, right? She's not trying to win in court. She's trying to win in your head. And that's when something inside me snapped. Not from anger, but from clarity. This wasn't about love. It never was. It was about power. She wanted to see if she still had the strings, if she could tug just hard enough to make me come running, crying, begging her to stop. But I wasn't that girl anymore, the one who waited on the porch with a suitcase, the one who begged for kindness and settled for crumbs, the one who believed love and pain had to come in the same box, number. This time, I wasn't going to run. I was going to stand. The court date came faster than I expected. I wore a black blazer I borrowed from a friend, my hands trembling the whole Uber ride over. Not from fear, not entirely, but from the weight of what I was about to do. This wasn't just a lawsuit. It was a reckoning. She was already seated when I walked in, my mother. She looked smaller than I remembered, older maybe, but her expression, smug. Ray sat beside her, dressed like he was going to a barbecue, not a courtroom. His arms were crossed, eyes scanning me like I was a stain. When the judge asked for statements, she went first. My daughter abandoned me, she said with a tearless sob. I begged her to visit, to call. She left me to suffer. She painted herself as a fragile, helpless woman who had been wronged by her only child. It was surreal, like watching a stranger wear my mother's face. Then it was my turn. I stood, hands sweating, heart pounding, and I told the truth. I talked about the years of silence, the The night my clothes were thrown on the porch. The way she stood by while Ray screamed at me, locked me out, stole my space, my safety, my voice. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't cry. I let the facts speak for themselves. Karen had advised me, don't attack. Just tell the truth. It's more powerful than anything they can fabricate. So I did. And when I finished, the courtroom was silent. The judge looked at me, then at her, then back at me. And for the first time in my life, someone with authority believed me. I didn't need her approval. I didn't need her apology. I had the truth, and it was mine now, not something she could twist or bury or sue out of existence. After court, I didn't rush out. I stayed, not because I owed her anything, but because I needed to see her reaction. I needed to know if anything I said had landed. She stood up slowly, smoothed her skirt, and avoided my eyes. Ray muttered something to her. She nodded, then she looked at me. And in that moment, I knew. There was nothing behind her eyes. No flicker of regret, no sadness, no trace of the woman who used to sing to me when I had the flu. The woman who cheered at my school plays like I was on Broadway. All gone, just a cold practice distance. Like I was a former tenant she barely remembered. I didn't say a word. I just stared back, holding that silence like a shield. She finally broke it. "Congratulations," she said bitterly, stepping past me. "You made your point." I wanted to say a million things. You made me this way. You let him in. You shut me out. But I stayed silent. Because for the first time, her words didn't land. Her voice didn't pierce me. Her coldness didn't bend me backward. She didn't know it, but she was talking to someone else now. Not the scared little girl she used to scold into obedience. Not the teenager she pushed aside for a man who didn't even like kids. Not the young woman she tried to break in court. I was done pleading for her, done hoping, done explaining. She walked away that day, and I let her go. Not out of anger, not even out of pride, but because I finally understood. You don't have to hate someone to stop letting them hurt you. After the trial, I expected to feel triumphant, like a movie ending, complete with dramatic music and some victorious walk into the sunset. But real life doesn't work that way. What I felt, truthfully, empty. I'd won, legally, emotionally, spiritually. But there was no parade, no celebration, just me, walking back into my one-bedroom apartment, where Milo wagged his tail like nothing had happened. I fed him, sat on the couch, and stared at the wall. The silence wasn't painful this time. It was heavy, sure, but it was mine. Still, I couldn't shake it. The guilt. It crept in during the quiet moments, brushed up against me when I folded laundry or washed dishes. That whispering voice. "You're a bad daughter. She raised you. She must have loved you once." It took me a while to realize something crucial. Abuse doesn't always scream. Sometimes it whispers sweet things while stealing your spine. Yes, she made my lunches in second grade. Yes, she took me to the ER when I fell off the swing set. But love that only exists when it's convenient is not love. It's leverage. It's manipulation dressed as memory. I started writing things down, not for court, for me. Every time I remembered something that hurt, I wrote it, not to dwell, but to disarm it, to take the weight out of it. And slowly, those memories lost their fangs. The peace I was building, it started to feel real, still quiet, still gentle, but no longer guilt-covered. It started to feel like freedom. I never used to celebrate my birthday, not after she forgot it twice in a row. The first time, I made excuses for her. She's busy. Ray probably distracted her. It's no big deal. The second time, I sat in my room the whole day, phone silent, cake untouched in the fridge, pretending it didn't matter. But after the trial, something changed. That year, when my birthday came around, I didn't wait for anyone else to remember. I baked a cake from a box, vanilla, with too much frosting. I lit a candle for myself. I bought a cheap crown from the party store and wore it the entire day, even while walking Milo. People stared. I didn't care, because for the first time in my adult life, I was choosing me. I didn't need balloons or Facebook posts or a call from someone who only remembered when guilt knocked on her shoulder. I needed this: a quiet room, a soft playlist, the warmth of my dog sleeping on my feet, and a single candle burning on a crooked slice of cake. And you know what? It was enough. More than enough. Because I wasn't waiting anymore. Not for apologies. Not for recognition. Not for the kind of love that only shows up when it wants something back. I was building something new. Day by day. Little by little. A life with boundaries. A home with peace. A heart that wasn't afraid to exist without permission. And it all started with a birthday crown and a decision. I matter, even if the woman who gave birth to me doesn't see it. Some people say, you only get one mom. I used to believe that too, like it was a law of nature. But one day, while brushing my teeth, I caught my own reflection. Not just glanced at it, looked, really looked. And I saw someone who had raised herself. Someone who had packed her own lunches, talked herself out of panic attacks, moved herself across cities, and held her own hand through courtroom hallways and silent birthdays. I stared into that mirror for a long time, and then I whispered something I had never said out loud, not even in therapy. You raised you, not her. You. I didn't need her anymore, not as a mother, not even as a ghost haunting my choices. What I needed was right in front of me. Someone who kept going, even when it hurt. Someone who built a life out of scraps. Someone who chose kindness, not because it was modeled, but because it was deserved. That day, I bought a new frame and printed a photo of me and Milo from the park. I hung it by the front door, not out of vanity, but as a promise. When I leave this house, I'll see someone worth protecting. And when I come home, I'll remember who built this piece, brick by brick, scar by scar. I didn't need a mother anymore. I needed a mirror that didn't lie, and I finally had one. It had been over a year since the trial. No calls, no letters, no Ray, just silence. The kind that used to terrify me, but now felt like fresh air. Then one evening, as I was folding laundry with a true crime podcast playing in the background, my phone lit up. Unknown number. But something in my chest knew. I let it ring. Then again. The third time, curiosity won. I picked up. Hello? There was a pause. Then I heard it. That voice I hadn't heard in over 12 months. My sweet girl. I didn't say anything. She continued as if we'd spoken yesterday. I just wanted to hear your voice. I was thinking about the holidays. Maybe we could... I hung up. No anger, no drama. Just a quiet click. My hands didn't shake. My breath didn't quicken. Because I finally understood something vital. Forgiveness isn't always reconciliation. You can forgive someone in your heart, wish them peace, even love, and still not let them back into your life. Because love with conditions isn't love at all. It's a leash. And I had chewed through mine a long time ago. I blocked the number, deleted the call, tossed the laundry on the bed, and kept folding. Because my peace wasn't up for negotiation anymore, and neither was my worth. For most of my life, I lived like I was on trial. Every decision, every boundary, every no came with a side dish of shame. I was always trying to defend myself, to justify my distance, my silence, my survival, because she made me believe that if I wasn't loyal to her, I was bad. But here's the thing about healing. At some point, you stop trying to rewrite their story, and you start writing your own. I no longer needed her to understand, or approve, or apologize. I stopped replaying our worst moments at night, like broken film reels. I stopped wondering if things could have been different. I stopped needing to be good in her eyes, because I know who I am now, and I am not the villain in her story. I'm the hero in mine, the girl who packed her life in silence and left before she lost herself completely. The young woman who showed up in court, looked betrayal in the face, and stood tall. The adult who chose healing over revenge, peace over performance. The person who, against all odds, learned how to mother herself. I've stopped asking why she did what she did. I've stopped trying to make sense of someone who only ever gave me pieces of love with full servings of pain. What she sees when she looks at me now is none of my business. But what I see someone I'm proud of, and that's more than I ever got from her, or needed. It was a Saturday afternoon. I was walking Milo through the park, coffee in one hand, leash in the other. The sun was out. The air smelled like cut grass and distant barbecue. Then I saw them, a mother and daughter. The girl couldn't have been older than 9. She had a popsicle in one hand and her mom's hand in the other. They were laughing about something, tripping over a patch of uneven sidewalk, catching each other before they fell. It stopped me cold, not out of jealousy, but recognition. For a split second, I thought, that could have been us. And then, just as quickly, I corrected myself. No, that should have been us. But it wasn't, and that's okay, because I stopped trying to rewrite a story that was never mine to fix. I smiled at them, a real smile, and kept walking. Milo tugged ahead, excited by a squirrel, and I let him lead me down a different path, one I hadn't walked before, because I don't live in what-ifs anymore. I live in what's next. And every day I choose peace over bitterness, softness over armor, life over survival. I move further away from who she made me, and closer to who I'm becoming. Someone whole, someone new, someone free. People always talk about loss like it's a hole, an emptiness that you carry with you. But losing my mother, or more truthfully, letting her go, didn't feel like a hole. It felt like a clearing, a space where I could finally breathe, finally be, no longer trying to earn love with silence, no longer shaping myself to survive someone else's storms, no longer shrinking so someone else could feel bigger. I didn't lose a mother. I lost a ghost and found a girl who now wakes up and waters her plants, who sings while cooking dinner for herself, who laughs loudly, cries freely, and knows exactly what she deserves. A girl who no longer fears birthdays or unanswered calls, who no longer needs permission to take up space. A woman who mothers herself with gentleness, discipline, and pride. I don't hate my mother. I don't wish her harm. I just don't carry her anymore. The weight is gone, and in its place, me, fully, finally, and fiercely.